podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Football Gods is the podcast where we give celebrity fans ultimate power over the beautiful game.
You can hear Ian Brodie choose his ultimate football anthem.
I think You'll Never Walk Alone, which is a song about community, being together. I don't think you could have a better song.
And understand, above all else, what annoys Nader Monuoha.
The player who solely plays for themselves, but from the outside is perceived as being great for the team. Like, some of these guys are the most toxic people you could ever wish to play with.
Search the Football Gods wherever you listen to podcasts.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to a special episode of Media Matters, ladies and gentlemen. It is less than 48 hours or around 48 hours when I will be making my way to Wembley, so you can all hate me now just for saying that, getting into the stadium, but it is about 48 hours or so before Liverpool play Chelsea in the Carabao Cup. So, with that in mind, we thought we want to talk everything Chelsea. We even want to revisit the greatness of Luton the other night. All the things from a Pep Lijnders, yes, a Pep Lijnders press conference as well. So who else would I get to join me but the renowned and respected David Lynch? So, David, I know it's going to be a crazy busy, I'd say day, but 48 hours coming up for you, isn't it, realistically?
Yeah, it's always a big build up to a cup final, isn't it, as well, and the excitement that goes with all that. So, yeah, really looking forward to it. And, there's a few challenges in Liverpool's way going into this one, but I think, off the back of Wednesday, that everyone's feeling really, really positive. And hopefully, even with the some players missing and all that's going on around that, Liverpool can get that first trophy on the board this season and set up a potential quadruple. So really exciting time of year, really.
Yeah, if you can't be excited, people, it's February. Think back to last season. We're still talking about a potential quadruple. Insane, isn't it, really? And for this special, ladies and gents, we will talk through a bit around Luton because we've got to revisit that. Why wouldn't you? We'll talk about Pep Lijnders' press conference, what he said, what he was asked specifically, maybe even who was asking him the questions as well. We'll talk about Chelsea's threats, and we'll even start to think about the lineup, which may be the most difficult thing to pick for the final with everything going on, but we shall give it our best. I mean, we've got to rewind, first of all, David, to Wednesday night. That Luton game, I mean, 4-1, one down at half-time, to end up with a result of 4-1, especially, the backstory, the injuries, the players. I mean, Klopp literally bounced round Anfield, didn't he, at the end, and bounced into that press conference at the same time as well. This is a simple question, but I think I've got to ask it. How big was that victory for you?
Yeah, I described it in the post-match as sort of momentous, really, and I stick by that. I mean, people will say to you, oh, look, it's only Luton, get over it. But the obstacles that were placed in Liverpool's way ahead of that game were just ridiculous. And to come out with the win in the way they did, to put together a second half performance that wasn't just a decent performance for what is essentially a second string side, or a lot of it was. It was a decent performance in the context of the entire season. It was as good as anything Liverpool had produced in terms of blowing an opposition away. And I just thought, like I say, there was so much going into it that was up against. Obviously, all the injuries they already had. Then you throw in Salah and Núñez not even being part of the squad on top of that. The fact that Luton have really hit form of late, they'd already took a point off Liverpool, even when Liverpool had a more full squad available as well. So And then 1-0 down at halftime, having missed a load of chances. It was just, it just looked like it was set up for, okay, this is the week that the season falls apart. This is it now. It's you can get by with so many injuries, but maybe Liverpool have crossed that threshold, and this is where it proves to be too much. And that, people could say, that Liverpool are still putting a great side out on the pitch, and you look at the quality of the player they were able to call upon. Yeah, absolutely, but the difference maybe between a side that wins the title or pushes for the title and wins every week, and the side that challenges for the top four maybe is the quality of player. And when you take, say, Salah, Nunez and Jota all of a sudden out of your attack, you're much closer in terms of what the quality of your attack looks like to, say, Tottenham Hotspur, who you could envisage dropping points at home to Luton, than you are Manchester City, who never drop points in those sorts of games, or very, very rarely, or Liverpool at the best. So it's all about the quality of player. So, it wasn't, although I agree that there was quality on the pitch and Liverpool still have a very strong squad, you looked at that lineup and it's entirely feasible that that's a team that drops points to Luton. It absolutely could happen. So, at half time, feeling absolutely terrible, to be honest, and thinking Liverpool have created chances and pressed quite well. I thought that first half performance was actually decent in elements, but maybe that lack of quality in attack or top end quality is going to tell. And what we actually got was, like I say, one of the best second halves of the season. Absolutely tore Luton to bits in a phenomenal atmosphere, and a great win that keeps Liverpool on track for winning the Premier League. And it really was one of the great Liverpool wins under Jurgen Klopp, and it really should go down to that, regardless of the level of opposition.
I couldn't agree more. I actually think, in a way, and imagine from a journalist perspective, at half-time, the story was half written, thinking, oh, God, what am I going to have to finish? And it just gets torn up by the end because of what happens in the second half. And it's like you say, just the realisation of the players out. It doesn't matter which team you're talking about. If you took any good team's entire first choice front three out, 2 of their 3 in midfield and their goalkeeper, I bet every team's probably going to struggle or have some difficulty. So whilst it's being underplayed, or why people are saying that, I don't really know. But there we go. Sensational, that second half. I mean, this is probably a tough ask because so many rose to the fore, especially in that second half. Man of the match for you, or did you sort of spread it across multiple people?
I thought really, really tough to say, to be honest. I mean, I just saw so many good performances in that second. I mean, even great performances the first half. Don't get me wrong. I thought, like I said, I thought, even though I thought things were going against Liverpool and they were, they were 1-0 down and I had a negative feeling around it. It was more that, they're going to continue to miss chances and then Luton are going to hit them on the counter again. It's going to be 2-0 and it's going to be too much to come back to. I just thought they were playing well in that first half as well, particularly not necessarily the front three who were the ones who were missing the chances, but certainly in midfield were doing a good job. I thought the defence was holding up pretty well. So, I thought across the 90 minutes, a lot of good performances really. So, quite hard to pick one out. I mean, I think I picked him out of the Brentford result for the same reason, actually, but maybe it's because I keep being surprised by him, but I really enjoyed Gravenberch again. I thought another really good performance from him. I'm not saying man of the match 100%, but I thought he was Liverpool's best presser across the 90 minutes. They kept threatening Luton in that way, and he was the absolute best at it. Kept the ball really sensibly. And again, what I loved about it was that we've talked about inconsistency with him, but so after the Brentford game, he played well. It wouldn't have been completely shocking in the context of his Liverpool career so far if he'd been a little bit quieter in this one, but he wasn't. I thought he was excellent. In fact, loved everything the midfield as a whole did. McAllister, Endo, brilliant. Their partnership is starting to work a little bit better. I'm starting to really get on board with the idea of McAllister in an advanced role. I've spoken against that in the past, but really enjoyed his performance, and he's seeing more of the ball, and I think Liverpool are working it out a little bit more. So just, loads to love. And then obviously, actually, I don't want to not mention Conor Bradley, who's just a joke. Just too good. Actually, he can have man of the match. There you go.
Yeah, the kids, we keep panicking each week. We've done it almost all season, like there's kids, there's Quansah, Bradley, what's it going to mean? And it seems the more and more Jurgen Klopp introduce, almost the better they are. I mean, I'm trying not to be carried away as we talk about each week, but just from his cameo, Jadon Danns might be Roberto Firmino incarnate, just that little turn, swivel. I mean, this did show, though, as well as McConnell coming on at the same time. This really is a golden period for the academy, isn't there? There's no other. I know you follow the academy closely, you have done for a while. There's no other way to describe it, is there, surely?
Yeah, it's just crazy out the quality of play they keep picking out. And I mean, they spoke about Bradley, and he rightly got a lot of plaudits again for his performance on Wednesday. But you almost don't even, nobody really talks about Quansah. He's so good that basically the manager, with all the injuries that have got Liverpool missing maybe 7 or 8 of what you would call the strongest 11, and he still thinks, but you know what? I want to keep Kanate out of this because I don't want to give him a muscle problem ahead of the final. I'll just go with Quansah. So he does that himself. That's a choice he made. It wasn't an injury or a fitness worry or anything like that. He made that decision despite all the things that were going against Liverpool because Quansah is that good. And as you say, that's alongside what Bradley's doing. Let's not forget that Liverpool are missing Jones and Trent Alexander-Arnold, who came from their academy, and then you get the other youngsters coming on late on. Really enjoyed every time I've seen Bobby Clark so far this season. Yeah. Connell looks a really solid player, real quality on him. And then, Jayden Danns, he's spoken not too long ago, actually, about watching a lot of Firmino and trying to pick up those elements of his game. And you could see that straight away. I mean, that ball into Gakpo is brilliant with the outside of his boot, and the way he sort of chops across it. He's just, he's clearly got the tools to be a very good player. And I also like his physical profile as well. I think he looks ready for man's football, which, some of these kids can get bullied, especially some of the forwards who are prolific at youth level physically are lacking it when there's a couple I don't want to name names, it's a bit harsh, but there's a couple who've been in and around it sort of in recent years who you always thought they've probably not got the physical profile to play up front for Liverpool. Jayden Danns has got that already, and he's very young, and he's clearly got a bit of quality about him as well. An ability to sniff out chances, because he was close to a couple of moments where he would have been slipped in if the ball had been spotted. So absolutely loved his cameo, and just in terms of positives coming from the academy, it is a golden era, and the fact that this is coming just as Jurgen Klopp is leaving, it gives you a lot of hope for what's to come, and I'm sure managerial candidates out there will be looking at this and thinking looks like quite a tasty job to take on, because this isn't one of those where things are going to fall apart. There's a host of great players to take over, not including the actual first team squad itself.
Yeah, this is definitely no traditional rebuild job when a big name leaves, as it were. There's so much talent. And I mean, we've got to talk about Pep Lijnders' press conference, because based on that, we might be seeing some of these on Sunday. So we'll ladies and gents, we'll pull out the sort of key highlights and even a couple of questions that we'll get David's thoughts on. I mean, one thing I did want to ask you, Jurgen Klopp press conference, very distinct. I would say Pep Lijnders' press conference, very distinct, but for different reasons for me. Being in the room, obviously, as you are, how do you see the difference between the two?
Longer answers from Pep, that's for sure. That's why I was a little bit late recording this, because it took ages to transcribe what he said. He does go into detail, and he's a really open guy. I think that openness is part of it as well, actually, not just his ability to give longer answers and go a bit more in detail, but he's slightly more open when we ask him about injuries as well, which as a journalist is always helpful. Jurgen, you could see he was dancing around the idea of putting any timescales, wasn't he, on the players who were out in the last press conference, whereas Pep just absolutely got into it today, which was fantastic. And I think he's open and thoughtful. And do you know what? One of the answers in the press conference I loved today, which I think said a lot about him personality-wise and what he is like in these presses, but just generally as a person, was his answer about, what comes next after Jurgen. And he spoke about Bill Shankly stepping down, didn't he? And Bob Paisley coming in. Now, people, it's easy to just drop those names, but he clearly knew what he was talking about. It wasn't just a throwback to, these are the great managers of Liverpool who I've been told about. He knew how that succession worked. He knew that Paisley stepped things up. He knew that they were very different characters as well. So he's obviously read a lot and knows a lot about that. And I think that says a lot about him as a man in terms of, he lives and breathes Liverpool Football Club. This isn't just a job to him. And it's not just he's just focused on, I want to build a great team and the badge doesn't matter to me. It's he loves the history and really has looked into that. And I think that, like I say, it says a lot about in that answer, and that sort of typifies what his press conferences are like as well. Very thoughtful guy.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to lie, it was surprising me where he's giving each individual player the injury, the detail, a timescale as well, which, I'm sure is kind of a dream for a journalist. And we've got to get into naturally those players. So if we bracket them together, the three obvious ones to start with are Szoboszlai, Núñez and Salah. As he said, they've got a chance. We really have to see in 2 more days, and a last minute we'll check. He didn't really give us too much more than Jurgen Klopp, did he? It was still almost a platitude as we'll wait and see. I'm going to ask you, and I know you're not going to have anything, and I understand that, but there's no insight. You can't reassure or answer everyone's prayers that these three are definitely going to be in.
I mean, there's nothing really you can say because, I mean, you could ask Jurgen Klopp that question. I don't think he would be able to give you a good idea because the types of injuries are that, he's right to say it's day by day and assess what the pain is like or where, is there any tightness or is there any sort of feeling of a slight risk with it? And I don't think they will take that risk if that's the case because there's a lot to fight for this season. It's not about getting Salah back for this and he scores a goal and you win the cup and then he's out for 6 weeks after that. And you've still got to keep a title race together. They've got to be careful and sensible about this, and I really hope that they are. And I suppose all you can say on those three is we'll see. I mean, I don't know. It's a bit kind of negative. I did speak to someone who was kind of close to the situation. Who, when I suggested, Darwin and Mohamed Salah would be back for this one, kind of didn't seem that optimistic about it. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, that was a couple of days ago. Very different situation. Very hard to predict. Maybe they will. It'll feel better and they'll be good to go and or maybe make the bench. I'd be amazed if either of them started. I will say that, because he'd have to train these next couple of days, and that feels out the question really. I think if you got either of them on the bench, it would be a big, big boost because even if they can do 20 minutes at the end and win the game for Liverpool or stretch things, particularly Salah and Darwin with the pace, that would be phenomenal. So, fingers crossed we get some good news on that. But it's a nervous wait up to Sunday and we'll see what happens.
I think everyone's desperate to see training photos. We know that they released on Saturday, but I just don't get a feeling it's going to happen in this regard. They're going to try and keep it as close and as secret as possible. And interestedly, the other thing that Pep did, he went for the longer term ones, didn't he? Start talking about Trent, Hisnock, Alisson. So Trent and Alisson, he confirmed specifically after the international break. Curtis, as he kind of rephrased it slightly, around the international breaks. And the other two after, Curtis around the international break. The only thing that I want to ask you about, because he kind of giggled about it made me slightly nervous. He goes, when we're saying after the international break, it does mean, though, we're not completely sure. So it was kind of like a time frame, but then not a time frame.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac, and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes, and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
Yeah, I guess what he's saying with some of the ones after the international break. So Jota's the best example. When he says after the international break, he means it will be the other side of the international break, but he won't be back for Brighton, that's for sure. I think that 2-month sort of layoff that was reported in Portugal, that feels about right. And I think it chimes with everything that we've heard since then. So, I think if everyone gets in the head that he could be back for mid-April, considering the fact it looked like he might have done his ACL, I'd absolutely consider that a boost. I know, yes, it's a blow, but if you can get a couple more back around it and just boost the squad a little bit, then, to get Jota back in the business end of the season to score winning goals in game after game, that would be fantastic. So I feel like that's a boost. And I think, with Curtis, him saying around the international break, that again suggests, could he sneak in for that last game before the break? And if not, then he'll definitely be back after that. So that's great news. Similar with Alisson, he'll be back after the international break. And again, Trent, if it's a recurrence of his last issue, we think he was out for 3 weeks. So again, would chime similarly in terms of you think he'll just be back after the international break. So I think that's the picture. I think the only one, the uncertainty around is Jota because it's slightly longer. But for me, really, that I felt like that the updates there were kind of good news in that once you realised all these players were going to be out for a while, you start thinking it could be anything. So, to get them all back after the international break, or except Jota maybe, that, the squad's going to be looking a lot better at that point.
No doubt. And especially the fact that Szoboszlai, Salah and Núñez, even if they don't make Sunday, they're clearly not far away. So it's 3 big players coming back to offer a real boost, 3 starters.
One point I would make as well on this is that I think it's absolutely vitally important that Liverpool win that FA Cup game against Southampton.
Yeah.
To book in another FA Cup game. And okay, you could get a horrible draw or whatever, but, Jurgen's probably going to mix things up in terms of his team, regardless of what Liverpool get, because he's going to have to, with how the season's going and how many injuries Liverpool have got. And if you do that, it bumps the Everton game. You've only got 2 league games then before the international break. That for me is absolutely vital, because to have Everton away when you've got a few more players back would be a huge boost. So, a lot riding on that Southampton game for me off the back of these updates.
Yeah, no doubts at all. Who can't believe we're actually saying at this time of the year we're looking forward to a potential international break, and it would actually help. Crazy to say, but it's true. And the other thing I've got to call out in the press conference, it was your own question, wasn't it, around Pep Lijnders and whether he thought of throwing his own hat into the ring. So I won't give away the answer. I'll let you answer that one and what your thoughts were on the details that he gave you back.
Yeah, it was kind of evasive, really. I thought, I'd asked a similar question to Billy Hogan in the press conference when Jurgen was leaving, and Jurgen himself actually answered that as well and spoke about it. And I've just never got the impression that it's ever been an option now. The reasons why, I'm not sure. I think it's the right decision, because I think, in terms of his managerial career, he hasn't proved that he's ready to take on a job of the stature of Liverpool. He's great as a coach. He is, don't get me wrong, and a brilliant football mind, great character, but I think there's maybe an acceptance behind the scenes, and although no one will confirm it publicly, that maybe he's not experienced enough and he needs to go and try it elsewhere before anything like that happens. So he was kind of evasive around that element. But I did think he was interesting on the one thing he did give up in the answer was that he's turned down a lot of opportunities to stay at Liverpool and see this project through with Jurgen Klopp, which I thought was interesting. So shows that loyalty he's got to Liverpool and to Jurgen, and I suppose confirmation that he absolutely will not be the man to succeed Jurgen Klopp, and in that case, I suppose we'll all watch his managerial career from afar from this point onwards.
It's interesting because he does talk almost like a student, so to speak, of football, but then at the same time he's mentioning like Paisley following Shankly without that experience. He mentioned Tito, didn't he, following Pep Guardiola without the experience. I was like, okay. But yeah, it's obviously clearly been considered and it's not happening in simple terms. And I didn't think I'd be saying this to you on Friday, but big balls was one of the answers in Pep's questions, that he was given around the academy and the way they're operating this season. It kind of, I think, took a few people by surprise, you could hear in the room. But fair comment that Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp and Pep Lijnders have shown that this season and given the youngsters a chance. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, not just this season. I think back to, when Trent was used, for example, at Old Trafford. That was his sort of Premier League debut and stuff. So in terms of what they've shown in the faith in the players and the ability to throw them in even in key moments, Jarell Quansah just being part of the squad this season. And it's so different to go from like impressing in pre-season or training really well with the squad to then being thrown in against a side who are just trying absolutely everything to undermine you and get past you and make a fool out of you. So to be thrown into proper football in that way, it takes a lot of guts from the manager. But you're getting kids coming through who've also got a lot of guts or big balls to use the Lijnders phrase. You look at the way Conor Bradley plays the game. Same with Quansah and all these kids who come in. Jane Dan's coming into that situation, not looking overawed. McConnell playing in the FA Cup, thought he was really, really good and played really well. So they're just not scared at all. And it's not just having, there's no doubt when you get players coming through an academy like Liverpool, they're going to be competent footballers, going to have the technical elements necessary to play at quite a high level. But the rest of it is personality, and Liverpool have really instilled that in them. And you can see that when they take to the pitch, there's no fear whatsoever. And that is as impressive as anything. And that, I suppose, that helps the manager and his coaches to have the bravery to put them in, because they know that these are the right characters. They're not cowed by these situations, and that, you know, is again testament to the academy, that they're not just fulfilling those technical needs, but they're giving them, you know, the basis, the personality. They're instilling that in them, and what it means to play for Liverpool, that's in them from a young age, and you know, reaping the benefits of that at the moment.
No doubts. Yeah, they are playing a part in keeping us in a quadruple hunt, as it were. And listen, they might be called upon on Sunday, might they, with Chelsea? And then I did want to talk about, obviously, actually Chelsea a little bit on the threats, but how you see this game. Because if we rewind about 3 weeks ago or so, Chelsea get beaten at home by Wolves. Liverpool are flying. And obviously, we're looking at certain things and thinking, well, there might even be a situation where Klopp has to decide who doesn't make the matchday squad, type of 3 weeks ago. And yet, rewind to today, and they've just drawn against City away. They're starting to get a few results, and we've talked about our situation enough. Does all these factors make you a bit more nervous than you would have been 3 weeks ago for Sunday?
I mean, I might come to regret this, but I wouldn't say massively nervous. I mean, goodness me, I'm not an idiot. Chelsea could absolutely beat Liverpool. There's no, you know, let's not, no matter how poor they've been this season, there's still a side that's around mid-table in Premier League, and a team of that level can absolutely beat Liverpool, particularly when they've got all these injuries at the moment. So, you know, even if Liverpool have the strongest team out, football is mad. Things can happen, and they've got a certain quality of play, and they've got a great manager as well who knows how to set things up. So they absolutely could beat them. But I don't think this, you know, this recent form that Chelsea have shown, I don't feel like, oh, this is an epiphany and they're going to be on an unbelievable run between now and the end of the season. I still think they, you know, not playing very well. You know, even in the City game, that's what they're going to try and sort of recreate against Liverpool, isn't it? That's the blueprint, so to speak, is really, really defend and then try and hit on the counter. So that's how they're going to try and do it. But I thought, you know, as much as that was a decent performance in terms of opportunities generated against Manchester City, and obviously getting a great result in terms of their overall form this season, I you know, I still think Manchester City had to play very poorly to drop points in that one. I mean, first half they basically did nothing. They only really started playing late in the second half, and when they did that, Chelsea just couldn't get out. They were in massive trouble. You know, if that game had gone on for another 5 minutes, City would have scored the winner. So I think if Liverpool don't turn it into a second half game, and they make sure that they come flying out the traps, no matter who they've got on the pitch, then I think they'll give Chelsea real trouble, because I think there's still massive issues with that Chelsea side in terms of they've wasted a lot of money. There's some players who will not be good enough in the long term, who they've only bought in recently on these 8-year contracts that they've been given out. I just think it's not a great quality side. And I think Klopp has beaten Pochettino many times over the years. He knows what he's coming up against in terms of how Chelsea are going to approach this. So he's going to have the team drilled in terms of protecting counters, not overcommitting in certain situations, just being patient around how you build up, but also how to unpick that defence in the way that City eventually did, but only the once. So, you know, I'm still really confident for Liverpool, because, you know, that's only tempered by the injuries, but I still think Liverpool have got a better, more cohesive side than whatever Chelsea put out, and I think that hopefully will be the difference. But I think it's going to be tighter than it might have been because of the injuries are going to be a bit of a problem.
Do you think that, based on, like you say, Klopp has a great record against Pochettino, but with the sort of situation it is at the moment, do you think there's any players will make adaptations for Jurgen Klopp, and Lijnders might just be thinking we need to keep an eye on him, or someone counters him, anything like that at all that you look at as real threats in the Chelsea side at all?
I think the biggest obvious threat is Cole Palmer. I mean, Pep Lijnders mentioned him in his press conference, and rightly so. He's Chelsea's best player by a million miles, isn't he? And I think, you know, Jurgen, usually when he's asked about, say, strikers, so every time he's come up against Harry Kane or, you know, Robert Lewandowski or any great striker that Liverpool have faced under him, he always talks about the importance of stopping the passes getting into them. Now, Chelsea's biggest strength isn't necessarily a centre forward. I don't think Jackson's played particularly well so far, and Nkunku, I think, maybe is an injury doubt, in fact. So it's not about stopping the striker, it's more about stopping the ball being played through. And I think that there will be a little bit of focus on Cole Palmer. Just don't give him the space, you know, not sit on him man for man, but make sure it's not easy for him to play his football and get into spaces where he can hurt you. But other than that, you know, you look at the Chelsea side, and I don't think there's anyone who's in phenomenal form this season. I mean, the league position tells you that. Again, I don't want this to be clipped up and used against me if Chelsea win. Chelsea can absolutely win this game. I'm not saying that, but I just think Liverpool are much stronger, even with the injuries, and like I say, more cohesive. So I think it's, other than Cole Palmer, I don't think there'll be any specific plans for anyone, because Chelsea aren't flying at the moment. They're not in a great situation. So, I think Liverpool, much of what they do will be about how can we impose ourselves, how can we play our football, how can we produce as good a performance as we possibly can, and hopefully get the win in a comfortable fashion. That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it'd be nice. But history tells us these usually end 0-0 with a penalty shootout, don't they? So that's anything but comfortable. But I suppose, as the saying goes, you either win the cup final or you don't. It's one of those. And the lineup, we're almost guessing that, well, as we're always guessing, but this could be anything. I suppose if we assume for now that Salah, Szoboszlai, Núñez are not going to make the starting lineup, based on what we've seen at Luton and who's available is probably the easiest question. Who might come in, do you think? I know you said you suspect Konate straight back into that starting lineup.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think this is a difficult pick. I think this picks itself. I think the lineup will be, and you can quote me on this, I think it'll be Kelleher, Bradley, Konate, Van Dijk, Robertson, Endo, McAllister, Gravenberch, Diaz, Elliott, and Gakpo. Because I just don't think, even if Salah and Núñez make it, just no chance to start in 11, I would say. Just don't have the training in them, and they won't want to take the risk either. And so that front three picks itself for that reason. In midfield, again, injuries, not a lot of options there. And at the back, Robertson was rested for this reason, so Gomez and Bradley was brought off for that reason, so Gomez doesn't really get sniffed there. Konate was rested for that reason. Alisson's injured, so Kelleher was going to start anyway. So I think there's so few options that's going to be it. The interesting thing will be, what's on the bench and what can Jurgen Klopp do from there. So hopefully, Salah and Núñez can make it and squeeze into the bench. That would be fantastic news. But we'll have to see on that front.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there is still even the potential that on the bench, the 5 subs, the options, you've got Gomez, Tsimikas still there, so you've got fullback options at the same time, Quansah, and if you add those 3 in, which actually might mean, if they are fit, it's a struggle to see the kids getting any real minutes in this one, isn't it, so to speak. But I won't ask you to predict and absolutely put your neck on the line, but expecting, because of what you said, a tight affair. Is that a right way to summarise it?
Yeah, I think Chelsea will make it difficult for Liverpool to run away with it, and Liverpool don't have their absolute unbelievable quality forward line up there, so that's going to, that's a bit of a pain really, and will make the game tighter than it should be. But I still think, even if it's going to be difficult, I'd like to think Liverpool wouldn't allow it to get to penalties. I just think they are a better side than Chelsea, and I really hope they can show that, even with the problems that they're dealing with at the moment. And so hopefully a Liverpool win in normal time would be quite nice.
Yeah, a Liverpool win in any fashion would be nice. Normal time would be even better, no doubt about it. So we get to lift that cup. But like me, if you're going to Wembley, hopefully enjoy your day. If you're not, enjoy it with wherever you are, whoever you're watching with. And let's hope that trophy wall is getting updated. So all it really leaves me to say, as ever, David, I know we've caught you on a very busy Friday just before you're heading down to London, wherever. So thank you for your time and your input. Much appreciated.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Good stuff. And ladies and gents, that was a Media Matters special for Anfield Index.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.